Hello everyone, welcome to our preview for Pro Tour Eldritch Moon, coming to you from Sydney, Australia. Rich Hagon, Brian David-Marshall. We are going to be your hosts throughout the weekend. 3 incredible days in a great location at BDM, the final Pro Tour of the season. So much to look forward to.
So much to look forward to, and so much on the line for these players this weekend. And they have to do it all while trying to decode the secrets of a new Magic set. It's very high stakes this weekend.
Okay, so let's just walk you through the structure of the event. We begin tomorrow, Friday. How many rounds of what?
So we're going to start drafting Eldritch Moon. We're going to have 2 packs of Eldritch Moon, 1 pack of Shadows over Innistrad, and the players are going to play 3 rounds. And then we're going to move on to Standard. We're going to have 5 rounds of Standard, again, using the new Eldritch Moon cards in that Standard format.
As long as players get to 4 and 4 or better, that brings them back on Saturday to do it all again. 3 rounds of draft, 5 rounds of constructed, and then what about Sunday?
Well, that's our top 8. So the top 8 players at the end of those 16 rounds, based on standing and tiebreakers and all sorts of convoluted math, will advance to play on Sunday. Then they're going to play a single elimination bracket. They're going to play best 3 out of 5, and they only get to use their sideboards for the last 3 games.
All right, so that's the structure of the tournament, but the new cards in Eldritch Moon take center stage. We've lined up a few of them for you here to whet your appetite. Some real powerhouses coming out on the big board behind us. Let's take a look. So where do you want to begin? Well, okay, you've gone right at it.
I like to flip to the end sometimes. Emrakul, the Promised End. This is a card I'm really excited to see what people are going to do with it in Constructed and in Limited. There's players who are like, I'll take a Brazen Wolves over it in Limited. I'll let someone else worry about building this cool deck. And other players are like, no, this is a first pick, first pack. Also, probably pretty good in Constructed.
Right, that 13 mana is not the cost. It just is not. Okay, and then you've got Ishkanar, Graf Widow, card I know you love.
I do. I really do love it. And this is a card that matches up well against some cards in the format. It's got a Magic casting cost of 5, not 4, which is something we'll talk about a little later as we go through. And it can really hold the ground well and presents on its own a 2-turn clock. In terms of the spider tokens it brings in, the ability to activate it. So, interesting card.
Okay, let's talk Meld. New ability in Eldritch Moon. Here's the big poster children, well, the Angels. Gisela the Broken Blade, pair with Bruna the Fading Light, you end up with Brizella, Voice of Nightmares. Now, realistically, in Limited, we're unlikely to see this on camera.
We've seen it in some of the coverage drifts we've done.
Yes,
this
we
week,
have. Yes.
But it has happened in Standard. You also get Thalia's Lancers to help you fetch up the pieces.
Right.
And we could see Brizella giving some players nightmares in the feature match area.
So Meld is new. Planeswalkers are not new, but here's the latest version of one of our most beloved Planeswalkers. Let's take a look at Liliana, the Last Hope. This time next door to Eldritch Evolution. Why have you chosen these 2?
Well, you know what, Liliana, the Last Hope, if you follow the story of this, Liliana is the person who comes and helps the Gatewatch solve this mystery and destroy, imprison Emrakul. Actually, not really destroy it, but is there a Liliana deck that we're going to see? Is this one of the cards that the players have been locked away for the last week and a half trying to break Standard? Is this a card they're going to do it? Also, Eldritch Evolution is a card. People have been talking about this card. It does some very exciting things. It lets you jump up and cheat creatures into play that you don't even have the mana to cast yet. A Goblin Dark Dwellers can turn into an Atarka with an Eldritch Evolution. If perhaps you've milled an Eldritch Evolution away and then cast your Goblin Dark Dwellers, you can play the Eldritch Evolution for free. Are people going to find these little interactions? Are they going to find a way to make this compete with the powerhouse decks of the Standard format right now?
All right, so next up we're going to go white and red. Let's take a look. And here's Selfless Spirit, your 2/1 flyer. That's, I guess, straddles the Limited and Constructed world, because obviously it's fine card in Limited. But is Spirits a thing?
Blue-White Spirits has been a deck that has been talked about a lot. It's certainly been talked about in Modern with Drogskill Captain, but people are also talking about it as a Standard build. And, this is the kind of deck card you open up in the draft table and you're like, oh, you know what? I think I can build a really nice little flyer deck, have a little resilience here to some of the removal spells because you can give your creatures indestructible with it. And, of course, Bedlam Reveler, that's a card I want to see happen. How do you not want to see? Look at this card.
It would be lovely, and it does keep costing less, but I don't know. in Constructed,
Possibly.
you think?
Possibly.
Okay. I think we should address the Quellephant in the room. Let's take a look.
I like to think of it as the Spellephant in the room.
Okay. Well, this is Spell Queller, and this is going to be a big player, we think.
Absolutely. Bant Company was the best deck going into the last Pro Tour. It remains the best deck going into this Pro Tour based on the results from the Open Series, in the weeks leading up to the Pro Tour. And, players are really debating in the last moments before the Pro Tour, beat them or join them. Can you find a deck that beats Bant Company, which has just gotten better and gotten more unified around Spell Queller? There were a lot of different collected company decks,
right,
but they're almost all Bant decks now because they want to be able to play this card. So, can you build a deck that beats Spell Queller and not lose miserably to the rest of the decks in the field? That's the big question. So beat them or join them. This card is on everybody's mind right up until they start playing Standard tomorrow.
Okay, so that's some of the cards that we're going to see from Eldritch Moon, but so much at stake above and beyond the simple winning a Pro Tour, $40,000 US, a share of $250,000 in prize money. And that's because this is our last Pro Tour of the season. So why don't we take a look at our World Championship races? We begin with all the players who are already locked. These are the people who've been successful already this season, starting with Seth Manfield, the reigning world champion, and then inked down, you can see the ink virtually bleeding down the page, our Grand Prix Pro Points leader, Brian Braun Dewin, who only sealed it in the semi-finals of the last Grand Prix of the year when Seth Manfield didn't reach the final. So congratulations to him, the last of the known slots. Great stuff for them. So BDM, talk next about the Hall of Fame race, because this is a good one.
Well, who doesn't want to watch Luis Scott Vargas and Shota Yasaoka battle for an invite to the World Championship? You might see them both at the World Championship anyway, but in the meantime, fighting for this Hall of Fame invite. And of course, don't forget Paulo Vitor Damarosa right down there, a couple points below them, looking to insert himself into this scrum.
Next up is the Draft Master. Now, set your alarm clocks if you need them for the morning, or make sure you're at home for dinner, depending where you are in the world. The Draft Master, this kicks off our coverage both days with the 3 rounds of draft, and this is your highlight reel. 45 points for John Finkel. That is 15 wins and 3 losses. Astonishing. But Calcano and Carvalho only a draw behind, if you like, on 43 points. And then Saporito, Tharmaratan, Yasuoka, and Zadelkai all on 42.
Draft Master, the invite to Worlds, so exciting that Mate Zadelkai unretired.
Right. He said, I'm going to come to Sydney just in case I can go 6-0, and maybe Finkel goes 4-2, and Calcano goes 4-2, and maybe he can get a slot at the World Championship. Now, the parallel to the Draft Master is this, the Constructed Master. And for this, you can see behind me, 10 players really in the thick of things here, within 4 points. Now, there are 10 rounds of Constructed, so a slightly more marathon than a sprint, with the Draft Master only being 6 rounds. 10 rounds here, and some terrific players up the top, and perhaps not a lot of people are aware of Oliver too, and perhaps a little more so Michael Majors, right now in possession of that slot. Sam Black, one of the great deck builders of all time.
Yeah, Oliver too, also leading the Rookie of the Year race right now. Really wants to get a slot at the World Championship through this. He's like, well, Rookie'd be nice, but I want to play at Worlds now. Joined Team Face-to-Face Games prior to this Pro Tour. So he was really, truly the Constructed Master, more or less working alone or with a group of, not one of the super teams for the 3 Pro Tours. Before this, curious to see how he works within the rigor of a playtesting team.
When there's drama, we're going to tell you, oh yes. When there isn't, we're going to be honest with you. Next up is Player of the Year race. Well, it sort of isn't a race. Here's the thing. Only Owen Turtenwald and Steve Rubin can possibly stop Seth Manfield from winning. And that basically depends on Owen getting into the top 8, on Steve Rubin winning the whole thing, and Seth Manfield not doing very much, something he's not been very good at this year.
Or last year.
Or last year. So, in fairness, it should be Seth Manfield. A magnificent season, BDM.
Oh, absolutely. You see already with one Pro Tour to go, he's obliterated the point total that Mike Sigrist had last year to win Player of the Year. I think it was 73 points for Mike Sigrist. He's already 12 points ahead of that, and just been remarkably consistent. Came within a hair of unseating Brian Braun from the Grand Prix Pro Points leader invite, which seemed impossible. Like, we joked about it at the beginning of the Grand Prix, and Sydney was like, well, Seth Manfield would need to win the Grand Prix, and then that would really put a crimp in Brian Braun-Duin's plans, ha ha ha. And then, like tugging on your collar with 2 rounds to go in the single elimination rounds. Tremendous season.
Let's go to the regions. You're going to see lots of these names again because we're going to begin with North America for you. So there's Seth up on his point. Owen Turtenwald, 72. Steve Rubin, 60. Scott Vargas, 57. Alex Hayne, 53. Finkel and Rietzel on 52. Let's go to APAC because APAC is really good. Just move along. There we are. What have we got going on there, BDM?
Well, we've got Hall of Famer Shota Yasuoka atop the APAC standings with 57 pro points. Ryoichi Tamada, Yuya Watanabe, and Takamura at 47. Li Shitian needs a lot of help here from 45 points.
For sure. Let's take a look at Europe. Plenty of big names here for those of you who follow European coverage. You've got Martin Muller from Denmark up front, Andrea Mengucci on 55. And then a bunch of Swede, lots of Czech players there, Blahon, Strasky.
You know what I don't see here? Any yellow.
Right, so no one is locked in at this point. Now, if you are Andrea Mengucci or Martin Muller, you're probably thinking you will have done enough. Your 3 points take you to 60 or 58 respectively. We estimate 56, 57 may be the line for the at-large slots. We'll take a look at those in a moment. What about Latin America? This one's a little more clear-cut, Brian.
Yeah, Paulo Vitor Damarosa and Thiago Saporito have a huge lead over Guillaume Merjan in 3rd place and should be very comfortably into those 2 spots.
Yeah, and Merjan not here this weekend, but a terrific season for him. So it's only really if Marcelino Freeman, for example, or Willie Adel were to win the Pro Tour, that would potentially get them above Thiago Saporito. Paulo is almost safe for a slot.
He was pretty relaxed when I talked to him this morning.
I can imagine he would be. All right, so then we get the at-large slots. Now, this is just once you get to the end of the season, it's however many slots are left. When the music stops, they get filled up. So we've started our chart here with Martin Muller on 57. Above them, of course, Steve Rubin and Seth Manfield and Owen Turtenwald, but they're in. So they cannot get an at-large spot. And realistically, you're going to see Martin Muller get one of the top EU slots. Shota Yasuoka, Louis Scott Vargas could be the Hall of Famer, potentially. Alex Hayne could be a North American slot there. And as you see us head down, you've got Watanabe on 51, tons of 51s, Duke, Black, 2, Strasky, Blahon. They're the people who are going to be thinking, maybe I need more than just my 3 for taking part. And that is where when the music stops, it's going to be crunch time, which is going to be just epic.
Yeah, so I mean that's already a ton of action and a ton of stuff on the line for these players, but
there's more.
There's more.
Let's talk about the World Magic Cup. Now, 73 national champions will be determined this weekend. 45 are already known, and they will lead their countries into battle at the World Magic Cup in Rotterdam later this year. 28 are still up for grabs. We've chosen 9 of the most interesting and prestigious and fun that we could find scouring through the standings. So why don't we take a look, and we'll begin with, well, there is the USA, Manfield on 85. We know that Seth will be the captain unless Owen Turtenwald or Steve Rubin make the top 8. So that's actually pretty straightforward. Much less straightforward, BDM, is Canada.
Another season, another race between Alexander Hayne and Pascal Maynard. I talked to Alexander Hayne earlier today, and he said, you know what, we've been competing since we were playing at Friday Night Magic at our local game store as kids. They're from the same country, they're from the same area, they play in the same stores, and this has been the story of their lives. Very friendly rivalry, I might add, but definitely something where they are keeping an eye on each other all the way down the line every round.
All right, so next up we have Australia and Japan. Australia, well, this is a pair-up of David Mines against Paul Jackson, both of them Grand Prix champions. Mines from Melbourne earlier this year, Paul Jackson again on home soil, that was Sydney 2014. All of the others there are playing at this Pro Tour and with a great finish could claim that title. But again, BDM, one of the stellar races is Japan.
Yeah, I mean, great season here from Ryuichi Tamada. Puts him within 4 points of the Hall of Famer Shota Yasuoka. But you know something? Yasuoka has never been the Japanese national champion. He's done so much. He's won a Pro Tour. He's a Hall of Famer. He's won Grand Prix. He's competed at the World Championship, but has never led his national team. And if he can maintain this narrow lead, excellent chance that Japan will have one of their best national champions going into the World Magic Cup.
And it really means a lot to Japanese Magic players to be their national champion. It really, really does. Let's move from Asia Pacific. Let's go to my neck of the woods. Let's go to Europe. And one of the great races is France. France has Pierre Dajon 1 point ahead of Hall of Famer Raphael Levy, already a World Magic Cup winning captain, of course. And then you've got Desani, a great weekend this past weekend at GP Sydney from Thierry Ramboa. And then, you know, just the likes of Hall of Famer Gabriel Nassif lurking around with the chance of a top 8 to get into the mix.
Worth noting, Desani already on the World Magic Cup team. He won a WMCQ to compete on the national team. And I know that that's given Pierre Dajon a little extra motivation.
Right.
You know, not that he really needs it. He actually would rather be the captain of the French national team than be platinum.
Wow.
He's like, you know, if he does well enough this week and he could be a platinum pro all of next year, he's like, that would be nice. But I really want to be the French national champion. It's very important to me. It's very meaningful for me for my career. And that's his focus this weekend.
And then Spain, that should be more or less a double header. Javier Dominguez 4 points clear of Antonio Del Moral. Leon Ruben Perez back on 19 right now. So on we go. What I think is the best race of the lot is the Czech Republic. Lucas Blahon, Andre Strasky, both already platinum. Petr Sahurek, platinum by playing this weekend. Martin User, one of the best players of the last decade. Just the 4 of them going at it, going to be great.
It's going to be great. And Petr Sahurek, that's a name that I expect we've been saying more and more as this season has progressed. And I expect us to be talking a lot into the next year. You know, tremendous amount of respect among his peers, tremendous results, and again, you know, we keep seeing this wave after wave of great young players coming out of Europe.
And then BDM to finish off 2 more or less head-to-heads we've got here, Sweden and Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, Joel Larson and Magnus Lanto, teammates on Team Eureka. You know, it's really going to come down to who makes, you know, if Magnus can make a deep run and perhaps Joel Larson doesn't do that well, and of course, Paulo Vitor Damarosa with a substantial lead over Thiago Saporito that really involves Thiago getting into the top 8 to really put some distance between him and Paulo.
So that's 9 of the best World Magic Cup races. We'll keep you in touch with all of them. You'll find out every World Championship slot, every World Magic Cup slot, the platinums, the golds, the silvers, the top 8s, the champions, the best cards, the best decks. You'll see it all right here over 3 amazing days from Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. Until we meet for the first thing for that first round of Draft Master, Rich Hagon, Brian David-Marshall, saying bye.